It is a uniquely quiet kind of agony, isn't it? That dreadful, suffocating silence when the man who could not get enough of you yesterday suddenly leaves your message dangling on "read" today. Your chest tightens, the panic inevitably sets in, and every instinct in your body screams at you to send just one more text to desperately bridge the gap. But I need you to stop right there. What if I told you that doing absolutely nothing, completely ignoring his existence, is actually the only way to make him truly hear you? It is a rather brilliant paradox. In this video, we are unlocking the dark, remarkably potent psychology of Stoicism. I am going to show you exactly why your cold, unbreakable silence is not merely protecting your crown, but it is quite literally eating away at his mind this very second. By the time we are finished, you will possess the precise psychological blueprint to flip the entire dynamic, turning his petty little power play into his absolute undoing. Settle in and pay close attention, my dear, because the rules of his game are about to be rewritten entirely.
Let us be brutally honest for a moment. When the man you have been investing your time in suddenly goes quiet, leaving your perfectly crafted message dangling on red, the immediate physical reaction is a rather dreadful cocktail of panic and self-doubt. You check your phone as if it might magically spawn a notification, wondering exactly what you said to scare him off. But, my dear, I need you to understand that this sudden, chilling distance has absolutely nothing to do with your supposed flaws. It is simply an illusion, a remarkably predictable power play that men have employed since the dawn of courtship. Think of it as the classic fence test. He has taken a deliberate step back, leaning against the proverbial fence, strictly to see how quickly you will scramble over it to retrieve him. He expects the frantic double texts, the paragraphs of feigned casualness, and that tragic little message asking, "Is everything all right between us?" He is entirely banking on your anxiety to inflate his own ego, seeking the comforting reassurance that he still holds all the cards. It is a rather unimaginative strategy, wouldn't you agree? The very second your fingers type out, "What happened?" or "Did I do something wrong?" the game is entirely forfeit. You have quite literally handed him your crown and positioned yourself as the loyal subject begging for a scrap of his attention. When you chase a man who is actively retreating, you teach him that his poor behavior is not only acceptable, but that it actually rewards him with more of your precious devotion. It is akin to handing a thief the keys to your home simply to see if he might come back inside. So, what is the alternative to this maddening cycle? Instead of pacing the floor on a Friday night, glaring at an unresponsive screen whilst your tea goes cold, you must do something entirely contrary to your instincts. Pour yourself a rather generous glass of Merlot, run a hot bath, and simply exist in your own luxurious space. Your absolute refusal to participate in his little game forces the dynamic to shift instantly, effectively starving his ego of the very validation it was so desperately craving. You see, the true power of magnetic stoicism does not lie in throwing a tantrum, blocking him in a fit of rage, or orchestrating some grand dramatic exit. It lies in a profoundly unsettling quietness that he simply will not know how to process or categorize. When he anticipates your panic and is met instead with a serene, unbothered void, something rather fascinating begins to happen in the more primitive corners of his mind. Mastering this profound quietness introduces you to what I like to call psychological stillness, the lost and frankly exquisite art of non-reaction. I know precisely how excruciating it is to bite your tongue when every fiber of your being wants to send a blistering voice note detailing exactly how poorly he is treating you.
but you must realize that anger is still a form of investment. It shows him that he holds the power to emotionally destabilize you. By choosing absolute stillness, you are not merely ignoring him, you are executing a masterclass in emotional discipline that strips him of his perceived control. While he sits comfortably in his self-imposed distance, eagerly waiting for the inevitable signs of your desperation, you offer him absolutely nothing. No cryptic social media posts, no sudden changes to your profile picture to show him what he is missing, and certainly no accidental pocket dials. This complete lack of reaction creates a massive cognitive dissonance within him. He has written a script in his head where he is the leading man and you are the tragically heartbroken supporting actress, but you have simply refused to turn up to the theater. You see, his primal brain is wired for a very straightforward cause and effect loop. He pulls away, and consequently, you pursue. When his absence makes zero visible impact on your daily routine, it becomes entirely disorienting for him. He begins to question his own value and the fundamental assumption that he was the center of your universe. It is a rather delightful paradox, truly. By doing absolutely nothing at all, you are screaming volumes about your own unshakable self-worth. Instead of descending into an internet spiral, analyzing who he has recently followed on Instagram at 3 in the morning, you remain blissfully untethered. If a man wishes to act like a ghost, treat him precisely like one, an invisible, slightly drafty inconvenience that you simply ignore as you go about your fabulously curated life. When he realizes his silence is deafening only to himself, the initial smugness he felt will rapidly curdle into a rather uncomfortable anxiety. He expected a weeping, chaotic mess, yet he is met with a formidable fortress of indifference. This disorientation is merely the first phase of his psychological unraveling. Once he registers that you are not merely pretending to be unbothered, but that you have genuinely detached your emotional supply from his actions, the dynamic shifts even further out of his favor. Because when you stop pouring your precious vitality into a man who refuses to reciprocate, that redirected focus creates an absolute void in his reality. And what happens next is something he is woefully unprepared for. Once you stop feeding him your attention, you face a critical choice regarding what to do with that residual energy. It is remarkably tempting to waste your weekend dissecting his silence with your closest friends over a rather expensive brunch, effectively keeping him as the main character of your day. However, true Stoicism demands a violent, unapologetic redirection of that life force. We are talking about the meticulous creation of the energy vacuum. By completely retracting your warm, nurturing presence from his immediate field, you are severing the emotional oxygen he never even realized he was breathing. Instead of staring blankly at your mobile, praying for his name to miraculously appear, you must pivot with ruthless precision. Channel that anxious frustration into your career, your personal investments, or quite frankly, a grueling Pilates session that reminds you exactly how formidable you are. You take all the vibrant dedication you were squandering on his stagnant behavior and aggressively reinvest it into constructing your own magnificent empire. You become fiercely unavailable, not as a petty, calculated tactic, but because your life is genuinely far too rich to accommodate a passenger who outright refuses to pedal. Men, for all their supposed independence, are incredibly sensitive to subtle shifts in emotional temperature. When he was consistently receiving your care, your clever messages, and your mental real estate, he felt comfortably warm and entirely secure. Now, however, there is a sudden and biting frost. The absolute absence of your energy creates a suffocating vacuum in his daily reality. It is rather like having the central heating abruptly switched off in the middle of a miserable London winter. He won't know exactly how you managed it, but he will feel inexplicably, terribly cold without you. This sudden, chilling deprivation is the exact psychological trigger that forces his mind to obsess over you once more. Human nature dictates a rather tragic flaw. We rarely value the devotion that is freely served to us on a silver platter, yet we frantically desire the prize that is suddenly placed out of reach. Because you are no longer holding space for him, his own ego must step in to fill the terrifying void. He will find himself desperately wondering whose attention you are capturing now, why his absence hasn't crushed you, and why you haven't even bothered to check his dreadfully mundane social media updates. You have effectively evicted him from your mental space, and as a direct consequence, you have taken up permanent residence within his. It is only a matter of time before the crushing pressure of this vacuum becomes utterly unbearable for his pride. The very silence he initiated will eventually break him, and he will inevitably attempt to slither back into your orbit, usually armed with a shockingly mediocre excuse about being terribly swamped at the office. But when that predictable message finally vibrates on your screen, you will face the absolute most crucial test of this entire strategy. When the inevitable finally happens, and trust me, my dear, it always does, he will resurface. It usually arrives as a rather pathetic ping on your mobile on a Tuesday evening, a half-hearted, "Hey, sorry I've been missing in action, things have been absolutely mental." The natural impulse for many women is to feel a sudden rush of relief, perhaps even the urge to celebrate that their painful patience has finally been rewarded. However, the absolute non-negotiable rule of magnetic Stoicism is this: there shall be no fanfare, no marching band, and certainly no enthusiastic welcome back. You must not, under any circumstances, reward his bare minimum effort with a maximum emotional payout. You see, when a man decides to crawl back after a period of unexplained silence, he is expecting one of two very specific reactions. He anticipates either a fiery, tearful interrogation, which strokes his ego by proving he holds emotional dominion over you, or a desperate, overly eager acceptance because you are just so utterly thrilled he has remembered you exist. To shatter his reality, you must offer him neither. Instead, you are going to greet his return with the exact same level of polite, tepid indifference that you would offer a rather unremarkable postman who has delivered a parcel slightly late. This is the era of cold diplomacy. When he sends that predictable message attempting to test the waters, you do not drop everything to reply. You leave it to marinate for a few hours whilst you finish a brilliant book or enjoy a glass of something robust. When you finally do respond, you keep it ruthlessly brief and painfully civil. A simple, "Glad to hear you're alive and well. It's been a remarkably productive week on my end," works perfectly. You do not ask follow-up questions, you don't demand explanations, and you certainly do not ask to see him. You are actively stripping away the radiant warmth he previously took for granted. The psychological shock of this reception is truly a thing of beauty. By responding without a single trace of bitterness, anger, or excitement, you are providing undeniable proof that his absence did not destroy you in the slightest. It did not break your spirit, nor did it put a halt to your fabulous life. The only thing his silence successfully destroyed was his own VIP access to your time, your affection, and your exclusive energy. The velvet rope has been firmly drawn closed. and he has abruptly found himself standing at the very back of the queue with the rest of the general public. He is suddenly faced with a rather terrifying epiphany. His foolish little game of push and pull has backfired spectacularly. He intended to lower your value to increase his own, but he has simply managed to revoke his own privileges. He realizes that to regain even a fraction of the high-value access he once enjoyed, he will have to move mountains, not just send a lazy text message. And whilst he scrambles to figure out how on earth to win back a queen who has already emotionally detached, you are left holding the ultimate, undeniable power over the entire dynamic.
Before we part ways, I have a rather provocative question for you, and I expect you to be brutally honest in the comments below. How do you handle a man pulling away or ghosting you now compared to the woman you were a few years ago? Have you already mastered the formidable art of cold silence, or are you still finding it difficult to resist the urge to text him? Confess your journey down there. I read every single one. If you are finally ready to stop chasing, elevate your standards permanently, and truly master the intricate psychology of relationships, it is time to make our arrangement official. Subscribe to Destiny's Decree and ensure you tap that notification bell. Do not leave your romantic fate to mere chance when you can so easily orchestrate it. Until next time, my dear, keep your crown firmly in place and remember that your silence is your ultimate weapon.